We have right now with us somebody who's a great expert in Middle East politics and what's going on. It's Jonathan Conricus. You've seen him on other media. He's a senior fellow at FDD, Federation for Defense of Democracies, focused on the Middle East. Let's get him on. Jonathan Conricus, thank you so much for being with us.
First of all, I really appreciate what you do, Ishai. Super important to get our message out there. I just came off Channel 12 News in Hebrew, one of the biggest stations in Israel, and we were discussing the issue of misinformation and how international media now is focusing on the legality of US and Israeli strikes against Iran and on various niche incidents in Iran, with the obvious attempt to try to create a false image as if what Israel and the US are doing against the Iranian regime isn't legitimate, and trying to portray an image as if Israel is striking civilians and causing undue civilian harm. I find it absurd. It's just laughable. What we're seeing just now, I'm sure you covered it, but we have at least 8 murdered Israeli civilians as a result of the impact explosion of an Iranian missile in Beit Shemesh, not far from Jerusalem. That adds up to 2 additional Israeli civilians, 2 women that were murdered yesterday by Iranian missiles. That's at least 10 Israeli civilians murdered by the regime. And what we're seeing is that the Iranian regime is lashing out and firing missiles indiscriminately all across the region. Hundreds of missiles fired at Israel already, or a high number of dozens of missiles fired at Israel already. But towards the United Arab Emirates, more than 150 missiles fired by Iran at the UAE, at Kuwait, at Saudi Arabia, and there are casualties in all of these countries. And just like in Israel, the Iranians are firing at civilian locations, hotels, airports, facilities where there's a large amount of civilians there. This is what the Iranian regime is doing. It is wanton aggression. It is a regime that has absolutely no respect for human life, for decency, and yet we see a lot of the international media pontificating, and pundits and people and the usual anti-Israeli crowd pontificating about what Israel is doing. I want to discuss the legality of Israeli actions against Iran and put things into historic perspective. The Iranian regime has an outspoken, official, clear objective to annihilate the Jewish state. This is a goal of the regime. This isn't something, it's not a talking point. It isn't something that they just say for, domestic political purposes. This is a goal of the regime. And they have been pursuing this goal with all of the assets and the capabilities of the Iranian establishment. They have tried to build nuclear weapons. They have been building hundreds and thousands of ballistic missiles. They have armed, funded, and equipped terror organizations around Israel. They have directed terror attacks against Israel for the last 30 or even 40 years, with thousands of Israelis that have either been killed or wounded as an indirect result of Iranian aggression. Iran has fired ballistic missiles at Israel. Every enemy that Israel faces, we see Iranian fingerprints. And if this isn't enough, then, in a square called Palestine Square in eastern Tehran, they used to have a countdown watch that was counting down from the year 2040. That was the target date per the Iranian regime for the destruction of the Jewish state. So if that isn't enough to qualify for Israel to be able to take action against this murderous regime and say, we're not going to have it anymore. We're not going to sit here and allow the Iranian regime to stockpile weapons, to rebuild their nuclear weapons program, to mass produce ballistic missiles with longer and longer range and with bigger and bigger payload. We're not going to sit here and wait. My only regret is that we're doing it approximately 30 years too late. Should have been done long time ago, and I can only regret that. So to all of the chorus of Israel critics who are, it's almost Pavlovian, it's just an instinct to criticize whatever Israel is doing. My response to them is that what Israel is doing is lawful, just, exactly what a sovereign country has the absolute responsibility to do. And the only regret is that we're doing it too late. And most free countries eventually will thank us for doing it. Maybe they're not thanking us now.
Jonathan, this is a big step to shoot and kill a head of state. This is the first time in all of Israel's targeted strikes to strike at a head of state. That's like a big deal. That's like saying your leadership is not legitimate, and I will now take the step of removing a country's leadership. That's a very bold move for Israel. That's a different Israel than we knew in the past. I call this liberation nation. It's a much bigger thing than just defending itself. It's saying something about this region. Comment about that a little bit to me. What it's like for Israel to go out on this limb and to eliminate a head of state.
Yeah, I think, he was the longest serving dictator, Ali Khamenei. I think 37 or 38 years as the very cruel leader of the Islamic regime, the oppressor of the Iranian people. And I would, downscale him a bit, and I'd say that the Iranian regime was basically a terror organization that had a nation state harnessed to its capabilities. I see it in that sense. Yes, head of state, definitely, but I look at him as an arch terrorist. He was the guy who came up with the plan to annihilate Israel. He was the driving force, the political driving force behind building the ring of fire of terrorist organizations around Israel, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, Houthis, etc. So in that sense, it's like taking out Hassan Nasrallah. It's like taking out Yahya Sinwar. It's like taking out other terrorists that we've done in the past, and it won't be the first, and I don't think it'll be the last time that we do it. What I think is interesting, and this is a signal to the region, to the various strongmen of the region, and I'm talking north and I'm talking south and various other locations, is that, well, Israel is now willing to actually perhaps shake free of the bonds and the limitations that have been limiting our ability to defend ourselves, and we're willing to reassess. If you are driving a country on a direct collision course against Israel, you are not immune from the responsibility and from the consequences that may follow. And I think that's a strong message here to despots, strongmen, tyrants of the region, and I think it's a very important one. I'm not saying and insinuating that this is what Israel will do in the future, and I don't know that we have plans to take out other, but I think it's a very important message for terrorists, whether they are just heads of terror organizations or actually lead nation states, to have that as part of their calculations when they think and ponder their strategy towards Israel.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, he's been talking about Iran. I heard him speaking about Iran 25 years ago at AIPAC, talking about the dangers of a nuclear Iran, talking about this thing. Like, this is a big moment for him. And he's surrounded by a team, a nationalist government, people like Israel Katz as defense minister, the Trump administration, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. There's a constellation here. There was an opportunity here, and it seemed to me that he knew inside that this opportunity cannot be missed. Then there was this big amassing of an armada, of an American armada. Tell me a little bit about Netanyahu, Trump, the amassing of these forces, the effort to negotiate, in good faith, I'm guessing, but the failure of those negotiations. Give me a little bit of an insight into the people that made this decision and the green light that led to this attack and the death of Khamenei.
Yeah, I think it's many years of hard work, many years of persistence. I work at FDD, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. The seniors in my organization, like Mark Dubovitz and Cliff May, have been speaking about researching, petitioning against, and lobbying against the Islamic regime for that time, for more than 20 years. So it's a very big moment for anybody in the world who values freedom, who cherishes human life, who cherishes the rule of law, civil liberties, democracy. It's a great moment because for the first time in a very long time, an evil, oppressive regime is being held accountable for its horrible actions. I'm very grateful for the alliance that we have with the US. I am very grateful for the leadership of President Trump. I think this would not have happened without him. His team, his team of senior cabinet members, and the people that you mentioned, Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of War Hegseth, and many of the other people surrounding the president, I think are exactly the type of American patriots that think, okay, what we're going to do here is work together with the strongest and the most serious ally that we have in the region, which is Israel, no doubt. And together we're going to do some heavy lifting and we're going to serve American purposes. We're going to do good for the US by actually working with the Israelis. The Israelis know how to fight. The Israelis put their money where their mouth is, and we're going to do it together. And this is going to be good for the US in the long run. It's going to be good for the US because everybody in the world, in China, in Russia, and everybody and all other places, they're watching and they are taking notice. They're taking notice of this American leadership. They are attentive to the fact that when the US president lays down a deadline, you better adapt to it and you better honor that deadline, or else there are consequences. The world is now seeing that, and that is something that I think has had a bit of depreciating value over the years, and I'm happy to see that restore. The US is working together with Israel to flex its muscles in the region, and I think when this operation is done, the US will be in the most dominant strategic position globally to pursue the national interests of the US, thanks to the fact that the US is partnering up with Israel and demolishing an old and bitter enemy of the US, the Islamic Republic of Iran. So it's a great moment of cooperation. We're doing good for the region. We're doing good for Israel, for the US, for the Iranian people. I won't be hypocritical and say that we're risking the lives of Israeli pilots to free the Iranian people. We aren't, and that would be dishonest to say. But I'm happy to say that that this has the added effect of also giving the Iranian people the best opportunity that they will ever have to actually reclaim the country. But this is America first. From an American perspective, Israel is very happy that this is happening, and I can say that I'm happy how the level of intimacy and absolute 100% transparent cooperation planning between US and Israeli armed forces. I've never seen anything like it. It is unprecedented. And I think the results show just how close and how well coordinated we are. And I hope that we'll be able to continue to operate at this world-class level of military operations.
Jonathan Conricus is a senior fellow at FDD, Federation for Defense of Democracies, focused on the Middle East. He served in the IDF for 24 years as a military diplomat as well, in the field of battle first, then a military diplomat, retiring as lieutenant colonel and continuing now the fight on the battlefront of the narrative warfare. Really one of the most eloquent and strong speakers that we have out there to defend Israel's rights and to defend our rights to prosecute this war against terrorism, against regional jihadism, against the people who have called for so many years, death to America, death to Israel, and now they're the ones to go. I was particularly happy, by the way, to also see the death of Ahmadinejad. Did that not feel satisfying to see the guy who stood on stage there and said for so long, a world without Zionism, to see a world without Ahmadinejad? Wasn't that a special thing?
Yeah, in Arabic we say "Kul kalb biji yumo." Every dog has his day, and Ahmadinejad was really a purveyor of hatred, of violence, of bigotry. He was an extremely cruel oppressor of the Iranian people. He really was a driving force behind regional terrorism of the Iranian regime in the Middle East. And he was an enemy of the Jewish people. He was an enemy of freedom. He was a bad and evil man. He made it easy in a certain sense to explain what the Iranian regime was about, because he was honest and truthful. He hates Israel. He hates Jews, and he wanted to destroy the Jewish state. And he was actually, blunt enough to say it out in the open, and we didn't have to read between the lines. So I'm happy that he is no longer walking among us, and that's another good message for all of the terrorists. It may take us time, it may take us years. Eventually, when you do wrong, when you try to hurt Israel, when you're an enemy of Israel, when you're an enemy of the free world, when you try to kill Americans, eventually we will catch up to you. And I think it's a good development that he is no longer alive. And of course, poetic justice. He wanted to see the undoing of the state of Israel. He has now been undone by the state of Israel and the US, and that's a positive thing.
Jonathan Conricus, thank you so much for being with us. We'll be calling on you again in the next few days. God bless you. Stay strong out there. Thanks for the fight. God bless you.
Thank you, Shai.